The Living Clean podcast is not affiliated with Narcotics Anonymous, nor do we speak on behalf of NA as a whole. We are simply members sharing our personal experiences and perspectives in recovery-based discussions. The opinions expressed here are our own and not those of Narcotics Anonymous as a fellowship.
Somebody who's unfamiliar with the history of wildfires in California, and this one specifically, how destructive has this fire been?
Since this is my home, it's a little difficult. This has been the most destructive fire in California's recorded history. During the course of this calendar year, over 1.6 million acres has burned in the state of California. So we'll get a little tired of the records.
Why was this fire so destructive and so deadly?
Keep in mind, we had a drought start way back in 2012. It honestly has not stopped. The embers that were cast by this fire were pushed well out ahead of this fire, and every ember landed and started a new fire. So you had 50 to 60 mile per hour winds pushing this fire right off the get-go. It started out, first sight on it was 10 acres. Football field lengths in a matter of seconds.
I heard 80 football fields in a minute. It's crazy. You cannot run that.
No. Oh, no. No, you're not going to make it.
$52,000 people were evacuated from surrounding areas, flooding nearby towns and cities, and hundreds landed in parking lots like this one. We're walking through the Walmart parking lot right now in Chico. We have domestic refugees here. It's a really kind of strange thing to see in your own state. Rudy Milashenko is a school bus driver who was finishing his shift when Paradise was evacuated.
It was a bus route from hell in Paradise, is the way I've described it.
North of Highway 70 is mandatory evacuation zone.
This is the very beginning of the fires, okay?
What's so striking about this, it says 9:11 a.m. and it's pitch dark.
It's pitch dark. Everything was so black, I couldn't even tell where I was, and I go this route every day.
Holy smokes, that's right next to me.
Okay, if you can get out safely, get out, okay?
I can't. No, I have to have a ride out of here. It's all on fire around us.
Here, this fire moved quickly, forcing thousands to make a run for it all at once, with evacuees trapped in traffic, surrounded by flames. You can see the flames and the ash raining down on the roadway. One family escaped Paradise with moments to spare, crawling along the ground and up the trees around them. The flames were indeed doing that.
Now here's a better look at the massive plume of smoke from the campfire. Crews have spent the entire day going door to door, rushing to get hundreds of people out of their homes. Some people, even first responders, had to abandon their vehicles and run from the flames.
Fire on both sides of the road on Pearson. Fire third to you. Negative. The deputy's car is also disabled. I'm on foot. With 5 other people and we're in the middle of the fire. We're on Pearson Road. Evac.
You can hear them out of breath, just running. You get chills listening to it.
The campfire killed at least 88 people. It burned more than 150,000 acres and destroyed nearly 20,000 structures. The wildfire was declared 100% contained late last month.
This is the Living Clean podcast. This podcast is not meant to replace meetings, sponsorship, step work, or service. This podcast is meant to be another tool in your recovery toolbox. Our guests are here to share their experience, strength, and hope with recovery through Narcotics Anonymous. Thank you for joining us. All right, welcome back to the Living Clean podcast. Mason S. and I'm an addict. Back for another special episode. We are excited about this one. Before I go into what we're covering tonight, or before Francis does, we're going to start with our introductions. Francis, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, my name is Francis. I'm an addict. My clean date is December 22nd, 1992. And my home group is You Are the Book Study in Chico, California. We'll pass it over to Shar.
My name's Shar. I'm an addict. My clean date is 4/11/92, And my home group is the Paradise Monday Night Group.
Yeah, Dawn.
My name is Dawn. I'm an addict. My clean date is 12/2/92, and my home group is the Paradise Monday Night Group.
There's a lot of 92s in here, Mason, just so you know. Okay, Brad.
I can hear.
Yeah, my name is Brad J. My clean date is 4/13/88, and Paradise Monday Night is my home meeting.
All right, Veronica.
Hi, my name is Veronica. My clean date is January 4th of 2008. And I really don't have a home group, but I would have to say Chico NA or the Wednesday members only group in Oroville.
Shanna?
My name's Shanna. I'm an addict. My clean date is 11/5/12, and my home group is Paradise Monday Night Meeting.
Scarlett.
I'm Scarlett, and I'm an addict, and my clean date is May 7th of 2012, and I don't really have a home group right now either, but a meeting that I regularly attend is the members only meeting in Oroville.
Okay, so introductions out of the way. Mason and I had met at the World Convention, and we started talking, and kind of famous. Our area is famous for this fire, and like of anything that people remember this area by is the campfire that happened on November 8th, 2018. And then as we've been talking, Mason said that would make an interesting interview. And so we've been talking about it for over a year about what it would look like. And so we're here approaching the anniversary. And so I've kind of gathered some members that the fires changed their lives. The fire changed my life. I wasn't from Paradise or from Chico. I wanted to talk a little bit about the history of Paradise and what the fellowship looked like prior to the fire. I know the first meeting started in, I believe, May of 1983, and that was the Monday Night Paradise meeting. And I have Brad here and Shar, who are both longtime members of that home group, but also, I'm pretty sure Brad just saw the whole fellowship grow up in Paradise. And you want to talk a little bit about the Paradise Fellowship prior to this fire, Brad?
Sure. When I got to the Paradise Monday Night meeting, there was 5 other people. The longest term clean was about 3 years. Some of the other members that had been there, as you said, from 1983, they had moved away. And this was literally the only meeting in Paradise. In fact, it was the only meeting in the area. If you wanted another meeting, you would have to go to, I believe it was Gridley. Could be wrong about that. I was pretty fixated on staying in Paradise and going to that Monday night meeting. We had our meeting in a bank, believe it or not. They gave us a key to the bank, and every Monday night we would show up there and have an hour-and-a-half meeting, 6 people. Sometimes we'd speak more than once, but we continued that meeting for many years, and it was always an hour-and-a-half meeting. We never closed it down because we were out of things to say. It was important to keep the meeting open in case somebody came in at hour and 15 minutes into the meeting. We moved around in Paradise a little bit. Other meetings kind of popped up. We moved into a small church, and then we moved into a bigger church. We got booted out of a couple places. And eventually we ended up at the senior center, and that became our home for many, many years.
Well, all I could say I think Paradise was a unique fellowship. They were constantly, like, Chico and Paradise were always comparing each other to each other, and this is the way you're supposed to do it, Chico, and we're like, oh, Paradise, so there was that stuff, and like the Paradise Monday night meeting, it was really a very mature meeting, like where it was dialed in, the atmosphere was very dialed in, and like in Chico is a college town, and so our crew is usually a little more rowdy and stuff like that. So it had a unique culture to it. The whole fellowship did, and then so it, like when the fire happened, it was kind of a shock. Like that. Like a third of our area had disappeared. Like our area is basically 3 towns, and so I think maybe we could get into that now. Is like talk a little bit about what we were meeting. Our area service committee was meeting up in Paradise, and everybody would go up there, and so when the fire happened, we lost all our literature, all the meeting spaces that the Paradise people were meeting in. Like the whole town burned down, and then the primary evacuation place was Chico, but people moved into Oroville, which was the other town, and just all the neighboring towns too. So let's get into that. Let's get into talking a little bit about what led us into the fire. I see Shanna is unmuted, so we could probably move over to Shanna and she could talk a little bit about her experience with the fire.
Shanna, addict. It was pretty crazy that 3 days after I got 6 years clean, the whole entire town burnt down. I remember like evacuating to another member's house. I'm not going to go into great detail about the whole evacuation process, but I remember evacuating to another member's house. And there was actually like 6 of us that evacuated there at separate points during the day. And like watching on Facebook and like getting check-ins with people to make sure they were still alive, and like waiting for phone calls and like texting Scarlett and like, where are you? I'm on my way. I'll be there soon. And like not knowing when they were going to show up, and I remember that night, actually, Chico and A was on East 20th. And that night,
He was in the bedroom.
There was an evacuation of the beginning part of East 20th. And I remember thinking, oh God, as so that part's being evacuated and we are being evacuated from our friend's house, and we are headed to Calusa. And I remember just thinking like, oh God, please just don't take another home of mine. At this point, we don't even know if we have a home. We don't know where many of our members are. We don't know if people made it alive. We're still missing some of our friends that evacuated with us. Family members are even missing. We haven't talked to our sponsors, our sponsees, like just complete chaos and like turmoil, and just not knowing what to do in the moment, other than just getting out safely and thanking God that we were alive.
Okay, well, thank you. Veronica, you want to share?
Yeah, it took me like 9.5 hours to get out of a Paradise, where it only takes 5 minutes to drive through town, and like I didn't know that phone's been off. I didn't have the ability to be able to like call anybody after, I think it was like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. I remember when I finally got some service. It was Shanna and Scarlett who were blowing my phone up to make sure that I was okay. Everybody was scattered in different directions. Everybody was supposed to be meeting at the hall. It took me longer to get out of there than was expected. And I just remember if you think about it, our whole entire fellowship was under the same exact situation. I used to go and lay my head on Scarlett's bed, or she'd come over and cry on mine, or I'd go to Shanna, and it was like this tight-knit group of people that formed these bonds in Paradise, and all of that was taken away from us. And usually when we have someplace to go, and then all of that is taken away from you, you're kind of left with no home, no nothing, and everybody was just trying to breathe, and not thinking about anything other than how this person is doing, and if this person made it out, and and that desperation, it doesn't feel very good, and everybody's full if you think about it, because no, like there's thousands and thousands of people, and everybody had like 5-10 people on their couches or in their yard, and being an addict, and I like what Shanna said, like she like I was just a month before my clean date of 10 years. And that's a big number too, so I'm just grateful that we chose to stay. Narcotics Anonymous really works, and we're proof of that.
Veronica, I want to jump in just for a second. I'm curious, like give me some context on like when did you personally find out that this situation was happening? Like I'm completely oblivious to the situation. I'm just curious, like, to put it into context for people who are listening who may not be familiar with the event. Like, when did you find out that there's something going on here, and when did it become apparent that this is a dire situation?
It was when I woke up in the morning and the whole sky was orange, and there was ash all over the place. But you don't really think that it's going to be your whole entire town is gone. You just think that there's a fire and it's close, and you don't realize it. But it was literally early in the morning, and this is like 7 o'clock in the morning, and a friend of ours, uh, Charlie, came and told me, "Hey, I'm going to pick up my daughter from school. You might want to get your stuff and go." And within the hour, it was just chaos. It was just chaos. We were trapped in our own city.
Mm. And so this is something that's going on while you're asleep, like it's progressing while you're sleeping.
Yes.
Mm. Yeah, thank you
Early in
for
the morning.
All right, so this is an early morning
Okay.
event. And I noticed, Francis, that you called it the campfire. Was this a derivative of a campfire that got out of control, or?
Actually, I grew up on this road called Camp Creek Road in the Feather River Canyon, and it was named for the Camp Creek Road that
Okay.
I grew up on, living up in Polga, and it was several miles away, like 2 ridges over. Like, so the fire started from some PG&E lines up in a very rugged area in the Feather River Canyon, and then like the winds just drove it quickly into Paradise, so over 2 ridges, so through two mountain communities, and then at 6 o'clock in the morning, I think the 911 calls started coming in to Paradise. Brad, you want to share about your day?
Sure. Like Veronica said, we woke up in the morning and I saw smoke, but I'd been evacuated 4 other times. 2 of them were mandatory evacuations and 2 of them were advisory evacuations. I got up and saw the smoke, and I went down to the coffee shop and grabbed a cup of coffee. And within about 2 minutes, the owner of the shop came running over and said, "Brad, you got to go. They're evacuating the whole town." So I grabbed my coffee and I went running back to my house because my brother was there and my dog. And by the time I got back to my house, which was maybe 10 minutes away from that coffee shop, the smoke was so dense that in places you had to turn on your lights so that you could see the lights of your vehicle. I got there and my brother was pounding on my neighbor's door. And I mean, literally banging on his door. Our neighbor was he was a drinker. And a lot of times he wouldn't get up until 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And Scott banged on his door until Kevin finally woke up. And if Scott hadn't done that, Kevin would have died. He would have burned up in that fire, There were a lot of heroes that day that you don't hear anything about. I grabbed my dog and I grabbed my brother and we jumped in the car and we drove a little ways and then we got blocked by traffic. Like Veronica said, it took us 8 hours to go 12 miles. And the last 3 hours were absolutely frightening. The traffic was packed. The roads were packed and we're all trying to get out. And there were only 3 ways out of Paradise, essentially, 3 main roads. 2 of them were 2-lane roads and one of them was a 4-lane road. But one of them was over on the side where the fire came in. So it was unavailable to us. And I know because we tried to go over there and we had to turn around and come back because the fire was just rushing at us. We got about 3 hours into this thing. They were moving you from road to road based on what lane you were in. They were trying to maximize the movement out of the town. And so we were getting shuffled through the middle of town until they got us from Clark Road all the way over to the Skyway. And then we went down, these are main thoroughfares, and we went down the Skyway a little. They shuffled me onto the dump road, Neal Road. And that's where it all turned to crap. There was fire coming at us from both sides of the road. The fire was over us. At some point, I looked over and I saw, this could get emotional. I saw 2 guys trying to put the fire out on their house with a garden hose. And I drove it for about 40 feet and the traffic stopped again. And I turned around and I looked back and they were gone. And I don't know whether they died in that fire. I don't know what happened to them, but I do know that it was like a war zone. There was explosions. There was one explosion that was so big that it shook everything. I had just gotten out of a wheelchair. I got in a pretty terrible motorcycle accident and I was on crutches and my neck was broken and I had a brace on and I had to take off running down the road on my crutches. And the only plan that I had was to jump through the fire. We were going to run down till we got past the trees and then jump through the fire. Not a good plan, but it's all we had. And all those cars, when we abandoned our car, all those vehicles up there burn up in the fire. It was a terrible day, and it was a horrible the last hour was. It was amazing. We really, truly believed that we were going to die in a fire.
Brad, you said something interesting there. You were saying that like you seen the smoke and you had been evacuated 4 prior times before in your lifetime, and it just made me think about in this neck of the woods, like we have tornadoes, right? So like when we get under a tornado warning, it happens so frequently here that people like they don't prioritize it or they don't think that this is the time. But so this was similar to your situation. So it's not uncommon that you have wildfires in California, but this time was drastically different than all those previous times.
Yeah, well, and Veronica might agree. You kind of desensitized to them,
Yeah.
There's smoke. Oh, big deal. We had smoke 2 months ago.
Absolutely.
Scarlett?
I also want to add too that the morning of the fire, not even the emergency personnel thought that it was that serious. Like people were calling in to 911 to see if they needed to evacuate. And even the 911 officers didn't realize the severity of the fire while it was happening. So people weren't even aware or being told that we needed to evacuate until the last possible minute. And that's why it was so horrific, is that nobody really understood, not even the professionals, like like nobody really had an understanding of what was going to happen within 3 hours. I mean, it turned into a whole day, but I mean, really, it happened in 3 hours.
Mhm.
And like, we all had, like, some people had an hour. Like, we literally only had this much time to figure out what we were doing with our lives.
Wow.
And so I really want to emphasize that for people that don't know what happened that day.
Mhm.
Like, we didn't know, and we didn't even really hear about what happened that day until a year or two later when the reports came out.
Wow. Veronica, you was going to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I don't think that people realize also, I heard Brad talk about people with their fire with their water hoses. There was a time where they shut off all the water as well. And so there was no fighting this fire. There was nobody to go in there and fight this fire. It was all about them getting people out, right? And it was 80 football fields a minute is how fast that fire was burning, and it created its own weather storm. And there was literally lightning coming out of the sky, and it was a bright day and there was no rain in sight. So like literally you would see blue shots of electrical stuff coming down and hitting trees while we're trying to get out. Right, Brad?
Yeah.
It was insane. It was, and like he said, it sounded like a war zone because all the propane tanks were boom, boom, boom. Literally taking our vehicles, like you said, the cars that were running out of gas because they had been in the road for so long on fumes that I literally had to take my car and ram other cars out of the way so that I can get out of there and drive up and over trees and things like that. It was pretty insane. It was pretty insane.
All right. I'm going to come to Dawn.
This is harder than I thought it was going to be. It was a rough day, and not being aware. I've evacuated my grandma's house probably 8 times in the prior years, and she lived down in Paradise. I was up in Magalia, which is just above in the foothills, and I kept getting calls from my mom, and she was trying to get up to me to be safe, um, to my house, and she had to turn around before she got up there because the fire had already spread so far north. And she ended up having to drive through town into all that mess. And I really didn't think that it would reach my house where I was, because it had to travel across so many roads, across another ravine. Um, I just didn't really think that it would, but I packed up. I got my cat in a carrier and got her in the car. When I got out to my car, didn't even have an eighth of a tank of gas, and I was pretty sure I wasn't going to make it. So I tried to go the fourth road out, which is away from Paradise, but up in the foothills to Butte Meadows, and tried to get up Skyway that way. And I stopped at the gas station. My house still had power, but we had no phones. And so when I got up to the gas station, they didn't have any power and they didn't have generators. And somebody was supposedly bringing a generator to the gas station. And so a bunch of us decided to wait. Um, and I turned the car off, of course, but I waited for hours there, really thinking I was safe because we were so far north. I didn't really believe that it was going to come up that far. And a highway patrol came along on a loudspeaker and said, "Get out and get out now. Whatever you got to do, pile in cars and get out and go up to Butte Meadows." And so we all started up to Butte Meadows, and I ran out of gas above Sterling City, and still thought, oh, I'm gonna be safe. I'll be fine. This is far enough away. But then it started to get dark. I'd been there for, I don't know, 5 hours maybe. And it started to get dark and you could see the glow. I had no phone contact with anyone. I had my cat in the car. Uh, and I got out with a sign that said, need a ride or gas. I need gas. Um, I had a couple people stop that were dog people, and I love dog lovers today, like even more than I ever did before, because everyone that stopped, even though they had dogs, didn't have room for me and my cat, and I was not leaving my cat. It was my daughter's cat. And I just sent messages with my husband's phone number and asked people to call and just say, this is where I'm at, and right now I'm safe at this time, if there's a way to get gas. But then it kept getting darker and darker, and people stopped stopping. Uh, and this one truck drove by, and nobody had gone by for like, I don't know, 40 minutes. And this one truck went by. It was the Toyota, and the back was loaded, his front was loaded. He had a dog in the car, and there was this little spot in the very back that wasn't loaded. And I was like, looking at the truck, like I could fit there. Me and my cat could fit there. And he kept going. And I kind of lost a little bit of hope in that moment because I hadn't seen a car for 40 minutes, and there was no lights coming, and the glow was huge. And so I was sitting there for probably another 40 minutes. And I remember praying in the car, just, okay, God, if this is what it's supposed to be, like, this is what it's supposed to be. And coming from the other direction where there'd been no cars coming was some headlights. And it was that guy in that green truck. And he had convinced the people down in Butte Meadows, please let me go save that lady. And they were not letting anyone in to come back through Butte Meadows. And they actually gave him a 5-gallon can of gas. And they let him come back up and give me gas so I could get home, and or where we were going, which was to Char's house. Thank God she was in Chico. And he wouldn't let me take a picture of him. He wouldn't take money. I had money. He is my hero. The unsung hero's name is Roy. That's all I know. And yeah, and so drove down to Butte Meadows thinking I was totally safe. And I get onto Highway 32, and the fire by this time, I think it was 7 o'clock at night, finally. Um, the fire had gone all the way down into Chico, and like where Shanna was saying they were evacuating 20th Street, which is off of 32. The fire had gone all the way around, and I was driving through flames, and people were so scared they were not driving okay. And it was just terrifying. And we came up over the hill, and all of a sudden my phone exploded, and I got cell service. And I was able to call my husband and tell him where I was at, and he met me at a gas station there. And I filled up my car, and we drove to Char's house, where my daughter is the one time my daughter stayed the night at a friend's house on a school night, and they were in Chico. And so she was already in Chico, and I was so grateful. My husband had left for work at like 5:30 in the morning. So that was before anybody knew anything. And so nobody knew where I was for like, I don't even know how many hours. It was frightening. And what a welcome homecoming to see my mom. We all knew to go to Char's house. And so we ended up there, and we were safe. And I've never been so grateful.
Come on in,
Char
Char.
wants to share.
Yeah.
So at 7 o'clock in the morning, I was at work at behavioral health, and I got a call, and the sky was black over Chico. And they sent me to the fairgrounds and said, get over there and do whatever you need to do. And I couldn't get a hold of anybody. And I went to the fairgrounds, and I'm walking around, and I'm passing out waters. and I can't get a hold of Dawn, and I can't get a hold of my son, and I'm working. And I called my husband and I said, if anybody shows up, keep them there. And I lived in Chico, and I worked the whole day. There was a counselor who called. She was on the phone coming down Skyway and got caught in the fire and couldn't get out. She did, but we had her on the phone for a couple hours trying to get to us. And she finally got to Chico. But we were sitting around the house after I got off work, and we're waiting, and nobody knew where Dawn was. We had no idea. And we were all just waiting. And by the end of the day, we had 7 people, and we were grateful we were there. We let everybody move in and stay for about 3 years. And it was okay. It was family. And most of the people were in NA, and we got along and we worked it out. And I spent most of my time with people from the fire for the next 2 weeks working at the fairgrounds. And I'm just glad so many people made it out, because it was a firestorm.
Mental health workers are kind of like the first line of defense when we do for the shelters. Before the Red Cross comes in, they pull people that work for mental health. And then I was working in a shelter down in Orland, and one of the things I'd noticed was that there weren't any NA people in the shelters. The NA people had family and friends where they can land, and then like the people that were in the shelters were really very low income and active addicts, and a lot of them wouldn't even sleep indoors. They wanted to sleep in their tents so they could use drugs. And they thought there was a flu epidemic at the Silver Dollar Fairgrounds in Chico until the sanitation workers started refusing to pump the porta potties because all the syringes were clogging up the porta potties. So what they were experiencing was opioid withdrawal at the shelters. Initially they thought it was the flu, but then it turned into opioid withdrawal, and which was really kind of tragic when you think about it. But Brad was wanting to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one more thing. You listen to the stories that we're telling, but there were literally thousands of these stories that day. Anybody that was in Paradise that had to do that evacuation has a story that's similar to the stories that we just told, because there were flames all over Paradise, and there was no way for you to go smoothly out unless you left early. And like Veronica said, or was it Scarlett said, people didn't. We waited. We didn't think it was a big deal. And then when it finally became a big deal, we all hit the road at the same time. That's what I want.
I can talk about.
Scarlett?
So me and Dawn lived like a block away from each other at the time of fire. And we were up in Magalia, which is above Paradise. It's a little town above Paradise. And so my story is that, and I want to preface that I sat and watched firsthand what my people went through, like Veronica and Brad and Dawn and so many other people that had videos of their getting out of the fire. And the fact that this is part of Veronica's story, but the fact that Veronica literally had nothing. When she left there, and Dawn and everybody lost literally everything. And so I didn't tell my story and didn't feel comfortable talking about my story because that wasn't my story. And I had this God moment where, like, a couple months before the fire, God had told me, and I swear it was God, over and over for days in a row, that I needed to prepare for a fire at night at like 3, 4, 5 in the morning. And so 5 days, 3 months prior, I like addictively, addict-like obsessed about what I would do, where I would go, what would I take, would I grab this vase off my entertainment center, like where are my baby's clothes, where's my daughter's stuffed animal, like where, like I obsessively thought about a plan about a fire, and it was only God that could have given me any of that information. And so when the fire happened that morning, I woke up and I looked outside, and in that moment I was like, oh my God, this is what I had been preparing for the whole time. And I just started packing my car. And so I packed my car and I was like, Dawn, I tried to drive down into Paradise because I had a boyfriend at the time who actually left work and drove up into the flames, who got caught in the flames trying to go back down because he couldn't get up to me. And so when I drove down Skyway, I hit the S-turns, and the S-turns are in between Paradise and Magalia. And I hit a wall of flames. And I'm on the phone with my dad, like, there's fire all around us. What do I do? Because he used to live in Paradise. And so I went up Old Magalia, which is another road parallel to Skyway, and I hit another wall of flames. And so I turned around and I went up towards Butte Meadows where Dawn was. And instead of going towards Butte Meadows, I went down a road called Pelton. But mind you, while I'm getting there, there's immense traffic even getting out up because people like Dawn didn't have gas. And so the gas stations were flooded, the roads were flooded, people were driving on both sides of the road trying to get past people. And I went down Pelton, and Pelton connects to a road called Doe Mill, and Doe Mill connects to 32. And so I actually got out of the fire within like 45 minutes. And so my story isn't the same as theirs. And I felt for a long time, and still kind of feel, especially right now, hearing all these stories, like a sense of like guilt. And I know I shouldn't, but it was horrendous. And I don't think that these natural disasters, or maybe not natural, I don't think they should be forgotten, because like we never will. And so thank you, Mason and Francis, for bringing light to these situations, because like we will never forget what happened that day. And it's going to live with us forever. And like the blessings that came from the fire, I would have never thought that I would have received. However, the trauma like has changed me forever. Like I respond to trauma differently today. I am numb. Nothing could ever be as horrendous as losing your community and your friends and your town and your home and your job and people that you know and people's animals and the fellowship. Like nothing that I could go through today could be as traumatizing. And so I'm grateful that we all survived and we all chose not to get loaded.
So we've kind of made our rounds through. I wanted to maybe talk a little bit about what people's lives looked like immediately after the fire, and like how we've kind of rebounded. Maybe if you like after the fire was out, I know some of you went back to your properties and like went through it rained, like it turned into mush, like your space and all that. And I know there are people that came forward and helped from unlikely places. So Veronica.
Well, I know it took me 5 weeks and 2 days to be able to go back to my house and see if there was anything left. Right. 5 weeks and 2 days, because it was hit one of the hardest places hit, because it was at the very beginning, But what I do know is that it was Thanksgiving Day, and I went to there's a place called FEMA, like they were helping people, and there's people from all over the country that came to help us, right? And like I didn't have no place to go on Thanksgiving, and I just wanted to go and thank these people who were giving of their time, and they were away from their families, right? And I would drive by people's houses, and this is hard. This is harder than I thought it was going to be. But I would drive by people's houses, and they would be eating at their tables, right? And like they were laughing and smiling, and I didn't feel that. I didn't know. I didn't have shoes on when I left. I didn't have a bra. I didn't have chonies. I didn't have nothing. I couldn't even get to my daughter. Luckily, my daughter got out on foot, but I went to go thank them. And I went in there, and they asked me if there's anything that they could do for me. And I says no, because I didn't have a good credit score. All the storage units were taken. There was no apartments that were available to anybody anymore. Anything that was on the market for sale was bought up by people that actually had money. Like there was absolutely nothing available for me. And but I just, I thanked them, and I said, if you know anybody that's selling a motorhome or something, just let me know. And they gave me a piece of paper with a man's name on it. It's my cowboy Patrick, right? I'm his girlfriend from California. He's 80 something years old, but he's a great guy. And it was just so weird. We're talking about God shots, but there was this man that went through Beaver Creek, Oregon, 100 miles out of the way, because he heard that the hamburgers were really good. And he said, hey, when you get to California, if you know anybody that could use this motorhome, give them my number. And they gave me this number, and I sat in front of the NA hall on 20th Street. Is the only safe place that I knew to go, even though it was closed. I just felt safe there. And I said, well, what's the worst that can happen? He could say no. And so I made this phone call to this man, and I told him that I was in recovery, and he was a recovering alcoholic, right? Who owned this bar in Beaver Creek, Oregon. And he said, you're my girl. And, and I didn't believe him, but 2 weeks later, he comes in this big motorhome. It's like a mansion on wheels, filled to the hilt with with all kinds of things, like jackets for people. And it was just filled. And I have that relationship with this man to this day. Like those are those relationships that are like never ending. And he's a cowboy. And the only thing that was left that was at my house, there was this statue. It was made of horseshoes, and it was a cowboy with a little gun, right? So when I finally got to meet him, and it belonged to my dad, who was deceased, right? And my dad's ashes were in that fire. I can't get those back either. And I gave it to him, and I gave him that. And so like he paid for me to go out there to visit him a couple of times, and he had a replica, and it's sitting on my mantle now at my house. So when it came time, he told me to sell this motorhome and buy a house. And being in recovery, we have integrity, and so like I sold this motorhome like he asked me to do, and I put a down payment on a house, and I became a homeowner for the first time in my life. Right. So it's like, this sounds tragic, but I'm telling you, there's so many blessings that have came out of this fire for each and every one of us. It's priceless. It's priceless, So I have a strong relationship with this man. I call him, and he calls me every Sunday since the fire. Here it comes, almost 7 years, right? And I would have never had that. See, what happens is that we get complacent in our recovery, and what that fire did is that it purged us, and it took us out of complacency, and it made us very driven and appreciative people. It made us stronger.
Okay. Shanna?
Holy cow, I'm sitting here crying like a baby. I too didn't have the same evacuation story as most. You know, I was out of there um with my family minus my cat um within hours of like being evacuated, right? And so um I worked I worked with adults with developmental disabilities at the time, and we had like 42 houses, and they were uh they were one step away from like the insane asylum, right? Like the most violent. Um and so like they were displaced as well. And after the fire, uh the company ended up finding this migrant camp in Williams that had like 20 different little uh like little duplexes, and started placing our clients there in homes. And I remember before we had gotten the migrant camp, you know, all I kept thinking is like, if I am disheveled as much as I am, and I have some recovery in me, and I have some fucking wits about me, pardon my language, and like I can't even imagine how these adults with developmental disability people are feeling, like how they're feeling and how scared they are. And so we had a bunch of hotels in like Reading and Red Bluff, and we were doing 19 and 20-hour shifts with these adults with developmental disabilities with our clients. And I remember uh, getting the call that they had found this migrant camp for us to go take care of these people at. And I remember going there and like working 19 to 24-hour shifts, right, in these little houses. And I would work for a week and come home to a trailer, right, where my husband and my two children were on the weekend. Um and man, like I too like evacuated with nothing. And I remember going to Walmart like 24, 48 hours after the fire, and we had gone by FEMA in Gridley, and gotten some like gift cards, and we had like $1,000 gift card or whatever card from AAA, because we had AAA insurance. And like going into Walmart to buy a bra and a belt, and like going in there and like hitting my knees on the floor because I didn't know what to do. I didn't, there was, the emotions were just so overwhelming of like, I need that and I need that. And like I have a, a pair of jeans and a sports bra and like a hoodie and like, nothing else. I remember when I was able to grab what I was able to grab, I managed to grab some workout clothes. Like I thought that I was gonna go do some weightlifting or whatever. And like sitting in Walmart, literally collapsed on the floor. Like I don't even know how to buy a bra right now, you know? Um, and like showing up at Chico NA, because Area was a couple days after the fire, and Chico NA hosted Area, and my service commitment was a GSR. and like showing up there and like hadn't cried yet. And like being on the floor at Chico NA, bawling my eyes out in safety because I was home. And like realizing that like no matter where I was at, as long as I didn't get loaded, like I was gonna be at home. And like those are the blessings that Narcotics Anonymous gives us if we stick around and we stay. But still some of the most terrifying, like, you know, like others have said, like our whole town was gone. I lost an animal in the fire. Our safety and security and comfortability and like all of that was just ripped from us in a matter of, hours. And what an amazing thing to sit at a table and watch the people from Paradise show up at Chico NA for their service commitments after everything was gone, right? To be of service to Narcotics Anonymous and like be able to hug them and be like, oh my God, you're alive. And I can feel your breath and I can feel your soul and your body, and like grateful for that. And the amount of people who showed up and like brought books and NA t-shirts and key tags, my 6-year clean coin along with all the rest of them, burned in the fire. And like I was able to get that replaced, and like that's what Narcotics Anonymous does for you. That's all.
Yeah, I was the area service committee vice chair at the time of the fire, and the area service was just a couple of weeks after the fire, and we had area was up in Paradise, and then we had it at the Chico NA Hall, and all of the Paradise GSRs showed up to their service commitment. With that, like they didn't have home groups anymore. They didn't have their town anymore, but they had their service. And as each one of them would show up, all of them would embrace that the next one that would come in. And that was a weird, powerful service moment that, like I got the witness. But Region, I just wanted to touch on Region responded with money. Like they set up a portal on the regional website, and there was like money to rebuild the fellowship in Paradise. And I was just in the area today, and there's no money for the campfire anymore, but it just ran out recently. And the fellowship is thriving up in Paradise now, which is encouraging. And I also just wanted to say that several members worked on setting up home groups. We wanted to make sure there was some continuity for the fellowship, and so the Monday night Paradise meeting was set up in Chico, and then the Thursday Burning Desire meeting was set up in Oroville. So like members of the home group can all be in the same place. And eventually they moved back up to Paradise, but like that was kind of a moment, like of rebuilding too of the fellowship. So I just wanted to touch on that before we continued with the sharing. Anybody else like to share?
So after the fire, I went to Chico Narcotics Anonymous and we met up there, and then we all went to a different friend's house. But from there, I went to Santa Cruz, where my dad lives. That night, we drove to Santa Cruz because I didn't have anywhere to go. And I went to Narcotics Anonymous in Santa Cruz because I didn't know what else to do other than to be at a meeting, because it was the only thing that felt safe to me. And so I went to Narcotics Anonymous in Santa Cruz, and it just wasn't the same. Like, I wanted my people, and I wanted my meetings, and I stayed there for about 2 weeks until we got to come back and look at our houses, and it was actually two members of Narcotics Anonymous that were college students at the time that were living in college dorms that had 2 extra rooms because the college dorms ran out by room. And so they just happened to have 2 rooms available that we ended up renting out with these Narcotics Anonymous members. And I remember moving in there and being able to go back to Narcotics Anonymous and the fellowship showing up like Shanna was talking about, right? Like giving us literature back and just showing up. Like I had people from Reno, Narcotics Anonymous, Sierra Sage area, like drive from Reno to give my daughter a dollhouse because she had lost everything. And the amount of support, not just from our area, like the immense support, like people like Shar and Francis and people like that, it was immense. But there was surrounding areas that helped us too. And I remember I always had my step work, and I wanted to get back into my step work, but I was so resentful that my 4th step that I had been working on for a year and a half had burned in the fire, that I told my sponsor that I was so mad that I asked her if I had to start it over, and she said yes. And so like I didn't work on my steps for probably about another year. And the first thing that I wrote on my step 4 was my step 4 that burned in the fire. And when we got to go to our house, and sift through that muck that you were talking about, Francis, to see if there was anything salvageable in the mess. But for 2 weeks prior to us going up there, it had rained for 2 weeks. And so when we got up there, it was like this cement, mud, toxic ash crap that literally, if there was anything that would have survived, like you couldn't even rinse it off because it was ruined anyways. Even if it wasn't ruined, it was ruined. And the only thing that I found that was fully intact when I went back to my house was a Narcotics Anonymous keychain, a metal Narcotics Anonymous keychain that I have hanging right here next to me in my car, that says, "God, take my will in my life, guide me in my recovery, and show me how to live." And if that's not a sign that that God and Narcotics Anonymous are together and they showed up, I don't know what is. And the best part about it is those blessings that Veronica and Shanna and all of us have experienced, is that complacency was gone, right? Like I was a waitress prior to the fire, and I was in real estate school, but I was unwilling to give up that comfort and stability of having money in my pocket every day. And like the fire took that all from me. And so it gave me the ability to not be scared because I had nothing to be scared of anymore. And so like I busted my butt and I took my real estate classes and I passed my real estate exam on the first try. And now we live in this beautiful 4-bedroom, 2-bath house in Gridley, which is in the middle of some rice fields because I'm too traumatized to ever live around trees again. And like I live in a beautiful brand new house in the middle of a subdivision, and like I still get to have all the love and support from my fellowship, because I truly think that I only remember out of the entire fellowship in Paradise, I think only a couple of us got loaded through that fire. And if you can hear the devastation in all of our voices, like what a miracle Narcotics Anonymous is, that it can provide us the ability to go through all of those emotions and not have to pick up anything to change the way that we felt. Like if you don't have any faith in Narcotics Anonymous, like I really hope you dig in, because miracles happen here.
Okay, Brad.
Yeah, I made it out with my dog and my cell phone and the clothes I had on my back. I lost everything else. And I guess I'm an odd duck because for me, all that stuff in my house was just that. It was stuff. There were two things in that house that I really, really, it hurt to lose. One of them was I saved my youngest daughter used to make me drawings. When she was little, she would do me these crayon drawings and she would always say, "I love you, Daddy." And I had like 100 of them. And I was saving them for when she had a child and I was going to put them in a notebook for her to give to her child, and those burn up. And the other thing was, and I know that you can't see that, but you can. That chip right there, that's the chip that I got when I graduated from a recovery house. It's the only chip that I keep. When I get a birthday chip, this is my 37 year here. When I get 38 years, I'll give this back to the group and I'll take my 38-year chip. I went back up to that house and like Scarlett said, that it was like concrete. You had to pound your way through it. And I knew approximately where that chip was because I knew where, it was sitting on my dresser. And I found that chip attached to this piece of glass. This is absolutely the only thing I've saved from Paradise right here. This chip was attached to that piece of glass. I found it, and that for me it was perfect. I really wanted this chip back. So after the fire, I was in shock. I think we all were. One of the things I think you can take away from this is that we may be victims of the Paradise Fire, but we're veterans of the Paradise Fire too. You can hear the strength in everybody's voice, and you can hear it in their story. It took me a couple of weeks to get through the shock, and I started wondering, and I started looking for a meeting. My whole world had been taken from me. I had a pretty idyllic life up there. I had friends in the program. I had friends outside the program. The program had strong recovery. We had a great meeting. I had a nice place. I was pretty happy up there. And the fire took all that away. So when I started looking for how to replace the Monday night meeting, after a while, I found out that some of these ladies right here, and I think you were involved in it too, Francis, you guys reconstituted the Monday night meeting, the Paradise Monday night meeting in Chico. And to me, it was like, oh my God, it was such a big deal for me. And to go to that meeting and see all those people that I hadn't seen since the fire, kind of reconnect, see that they were all okay. This was really, really important stuff to me. At some point, I think we'd been going to that meeting at that church for a month or something, and I decided to drive by the senior center, which is where we held the Paradise Monday night meeting, right? And I was reasonably sure it was destroyed because most of that part of town was. Anyway, I drove over to where the senior center was, and it was gone. It was just burnt to the ground, all the debris and stuff. But what was left was the front doors. So all of that metal structure, all of that stuff was gone. And there, standing in front of all that debris, was the front door. And to me, that was really symbolic. It was like, okay, the meeting's gone for a while, but the doors are still here. The doors are still open. Let's go find one. I took a picture of it. I still have it someplace. It's on my phone, I think. But yeah, it was when I finally reconnected with Paradise Monday night people. Then the circle completed, and it was better. It took a while to get good, but it was better. And by the way, like Scarlett said, I appreciate Mason and Francis, you guys letting us open this door again, because we don't realize, that sometimes it needs to come out. We need to talk about it. Thank you.
This has been really therapeutic for me, and I am grateful to you guys for this, because it's been a long time since I've shared anything about campfire and life after. And I worked for an insurance company up there for 20 years. And so I insured a lot of people up in Paradise. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever gone through afterwards. The very next day, I went to work, and I was working 25 hours a week before the campfire. And after the campfire, I was working 12 and 14-hour days. And I was listening to stories of my customers, um, about their losses while dealing with my own or not dealing with my own, actually, and crying tears for them and what they lost, and trying to show up and be the integrity in the word that Narcotics Anonymous helped me grow into, right? Like, because I didn't have integrity before I came to Narcotics Anonymous. I was a thief and a liar, and I'd been working those 20 years telling people, we're going to show up for you if something happens, right? Well, something happened on a scale I never could have imagined, and I was able to show up for people outside of Narcotics Anonymous because of what Narcotics Anonymous gave me. And I'm so grateful, like Shar and everyone at the house that we lived there. We had two cats that didn't get along, so we had to share space between the cats, and um, my daughter, uh, listening to people, the things that we lost. Like my daughter lost every home that she grew up in. So my mom's home, my grandma's home, and my in-laws' home, as well as Emma's home that she grew up in. We lost all of that. So all of her artwork, hearing Brad talk about that brought that right back up. I have nothing of Emma from when she was growing up, right? To remember that by, and now I have those things, but I take pictures. I take pictures of things that she does because I'm going to have those. I have those in three different places. I have them printed and I have them on two different hard drives, right? Like, at least I have that if something were to happen again. And I can remember when Francis reached out and said that they were opening up the Monday night meeting. Gee, I hadn't been able to make it through a meeting. Um, After the fire. And I remember walking into that Monday night meeting and seeing all of the people that I grew up with in Narcotics Anonymous. And I felt home in that moment. And I've never been so grateful to the members of Chico NA, of Warville NA, that they cared enough about us to do that, right? Like to show up and say, hey, we know you need this, and we're going to do this, even though we have our own freaking meetings that you could come to. Uh, we're going to do this for you because we understand the home group, what that means. Um, I loved Narcotics Anonymous for that. Like, I love the people that we get to become, and we get to see these miracles in Narcotics Anonymous. I saw a lot of miracles outside of Narcotics Anonymous, having people show up for other people, like having people take care of us and gift us. My family did this huge collection down in Southern California, and brought all the stuff up here for everybody, and there are so many blessings that came out of this. Um, I'm grateful for the home that I have today, that I was able to create a home here and share it with people, and that my daughter had a place to land. She was sleeping in a bedroom with her parents at 16. Ugh, like fucking gross, right? Like, um, she got to have her own space, and I got to have a housewarming party here. And like, we lived with Shar for a long time, and I remember I had a little housewarming party and we made Christmas ornaments because all of my Christmas ornaments were gone. And so I just bought a bunch of stuff to make Christmas ornaments and invited people to my house to make Christmas ornaments for that year. And NA shows up, especially when we let them show up for us and when we're open for it. And I could never ever imagine my life without Narcotics Anonymous, right? Like I never want to go anywhere else. My dad, who passed this year, he used to ask me, "Why are you still going to NA? Like, don't you got it? Why do you still go to meetings?" Well, because I keep getting what I'm getting, and why would I not want to continue to do the thing that gives miracles in my life and allows me some hope for other people? I hope coming behind, right? Like I get to be part of something so magical and so miraculous, and I can't imagine not doing it. Can't imagine. I hope that day never comes for me. So I'm grateful for you guys, the two of you, that you do this and that you invited me. Thank you.
Oh, I think for us, it's really been our pleasure, and we're over the moon ecstatic that you'd all be willing to come on and talk with this, and just I don't even know how to describe the story. It's unbelievable, and like I was telling Francis as you were all sharing, I sent him a little private message. I said, this reminds me a little bit of the flood that I got trapped in. Sponsee and I were headed to a service symposium, and those floods that came through North Carolina a couple of years ago, we got trapped in that. But one of the things that stuck out in that whole event was we had to leave our cars, and we were walking to this gas station, watching the water come up to the gas station. Well, while we were inside, there's like 100 people in line, and they're grabbing everything, and the guy in front of me is talking to me, and he's asking like, "Where are you from?" And we're like, "We're from Tennessee," which is like 6 hours from where this event was happening. This happened while we were going down the interstate. Um, and he offered to buy everything for us. He said, "You're going to need your cash to get out of here." But what was really funny is he was kind of chuckling, and he was telling us about these two guys who were outside helping push these cars up to the gas pumps before the water got there. He said, what's funny about those two is they are on opposite sides of the political lines, and they live right across the street from each other, and they try to outdo each other by dressing their houses up with all this political memorabilia. And like they decorate their Christmas lights and all this with each of their respected parties. But during this tragedy, like they couldn't stand each other, but during this tragedy, they came together and were like the first person that each one thought about, are they okay? And then they came together and got their four wheelers and things together and started helping people, and I hate that it takes tragedy to bring that out of us, but it's something beautiful whenever something like that happens, how all those other things that don't mean anything go out the window and love prevails above all that. And you all are a great testament to that. And yeah, forever grateful that you would be willing to come on and share that story. Thank you.
So honored. Thank you.
Francis is.
There was some stuff that happened. There was another fire that happened in Maui, and there was a response from the Paradise people, and we called it letters for Lahaina. And so we started a letter writing campaign, and then we also started like we were trying to collect recovery coins. Everybody was donating their recovery coins to mail to Lahaina. And then so we had this big package, and I had chased down the area service committee people, and I was talking to the area chair in asking them how they were doing over there, because I had gone through as, like the vice chair of our area during our fire. And I was like, so I developed this relationship with this guy. So I got their PO box, and I didn't know what happened. So we sent this package, like, and our survivors wrote letters to their survivors. And we had a big, like a big Nella envelope with coins in it and stuff. And but when I was at the World Convention, I had spoken at the Oahu gathering, and so there was like a whole group of Hawaiian people that I recognized, and somebody had said, "Hey, you're from, like you're from Paradise," because the people knew me from the Paradise Strong book study on Zoom, and I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Hey, I'm the treasurer from the Maui service committee." And I got to open up that package you sent us. And we read all the letters at the area service committee. And everybody was really moved by it. So I got to hear from the guy that opened the package at the World Convention. It was like one of those moments that I got to have. And I know Scarlett also lived in Lahaina in her addiction. So she had a connection to that space too. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, I think that's a beautiful place to end it. Yeah, thank you all again. Thank you, Francis, for setting all this up. Unbelievable. And we'll be back next week with another episode. We'll see you then.
Thank you for joining us on our Living Clean podcast. This is another platform that we can share our message of recovery, which is any addict can stop using drugs, lose a desire to use, and find a new way to live. Join that no matter what club. You can contact us through text. The number is 931-306-9364.